Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's November 12th, 2022. We are in the New Testament, and we're going to read from John chapter 6, verse 22 to 70. All right, so John, in his gospel, well, we just saw the feeding of the 5,000 men. So we assume there must be women and children there, so I don't know, maybe 10,000 to 20,000 people that he fed with a few loaves of bread and a couple fish. Go a little bit further back from that, and we saw the Samaritan woman at the well. Now, what's significant about that story? He talks to this Samaritan woman. She realizes he's the Messiah. She goes and gets her village. They come and talk to Jesus, and they realize he's the Messiah. So he didn't do anything in that village. He just talked to these people, and they heard his words, and they understood this is the Son of God. Now, he just fed 5,000 Jewish men, more or less. And he goes across the sea, and they follow him. And Jesus kind of confronts them because he understands that they're following him because, hey, free food. Let's go follow him. Hey, these guys handing out food. Let's go follow him. And some of them are saying, hey, you know, he does tricks. Let's go watch and do his tricks. But they're not listening to anything he's saying. And he really gets into his message. And he starts with what people call the I am statements. There's 7 of them that John gives, and we're getting ready to see the first. I am the bread of life. That's the first one. I am. You think about the burning bush and Moses saying, I need to give the Jews a name of who sent me, and God says, I am. Jesus very much wants us to see that he is God, and John very much wants us to see that Jesus is God in this section. So he hits them with this truth that, hey, you know what, this isn't about tricks, this isn't about free food, you got to change your spirit or you're going to hell. I don't care what you are or who you think you are, or you can trace your lineage from Moses. You're not on God's team. You ain't on God's team. And that message causes a lot of these people to say, wow, you know what, that's kind of, this is a little bit deep. I'm here for the food in the show, but I don't want this teaching. And they stop following Jesus, and Jesus basically says, goodbye. I knew you weren't I knew you weren't coming to me because you actually were mine. And he even confronts the 12 and lets them know, hey, one of you is just here for show. So nothing got my Jesus. So let's go ahead and we're going to read this section, John chapter 6, verse 22 to 70. The next day, the crowd that had stayed on the other side of the sea saw there had been only one boat. They also saw that Jesus had not boarded the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone off alone. Some boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. When the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into the boats and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus answered, truly I tell you, you are looking for me not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves and were filled. Don't work for the food that perishes, but for the food that lasts for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal of approval on him. What can we do to perform the works of God? They asked. Jesus replied, this is the work of God, that you believe in the one he has sent. What sign then are you going to do so we may see and believe you? They asked. What are you going to perform? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, just as it is written. You gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, Moses didn't give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Then they said, Sir, give us this bread always. I am the bread of life, Jesus told them. No one who comes to me will ever be hungry, and no one who believes in me will ever be thirsty again. But as I told you, you've seen me, and yet you do not believe. Everyone the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose none of those he has given me, but should raise them up on the last day. For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him will have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. Therefore the Jews started complaining about him because he said, I am the bread of life that comes down from heaven. They were saying, isn't this Jesus the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I have come down from heaven? Jesus answered them, stop complaining among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will be taught by God. Everyone who has listened to and learned from the Father comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except the one who is from God. He has seen the Father. Truly I tell you, anyone who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven so that anyone may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. The bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. At that the Jews argued among themselves, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? So Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you do not have life in yourselves. The one who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day, because my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. The one who eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. It is not like the manna your ancestors ate, and they died. The one who eats this bread will live forever. He said these things while teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. Therefore, when many of his disciples heard this, they said, this teaching is hard. Who can accept it? Jesus, knowing in himself that his disciples were complaining about this, asked them, does this offend you? Then what is it you were to observe the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? The Spirit is the one who gives life. The flesh doesn't help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and are life. But there are some among you who don't believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning those who did not believe and the one who would betray him. He said, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted to him by the Father. From that moment, many of his disciples turned back and no longer accompanied him. So Jesus said to the 12, you don't want to go away too, do you? Simon Peter answered, Lord, to whom will we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and know that you are the Holy One of God. Jesus replied to them, didn't I choose you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil. He was referring to Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, one of the 12, because he was going to betray him. May God bless the reading of his word. May God bless you. Bye.